Welcome everybody to the Bison Overtime show on the Bison Information Network. I'm Grant Hubbard, joined once again by Ethan Eibach. Great to have you back.
Yeah, good to be back.
This has been a week for us in sports and at the Spectrum. It's only Wednesday, but our April Fool edition comes out officially tomorrow on our newsstands tomorrow. But we had some breaking news from Grand Forks yesterday that we're going to talk about a little bit. And what a night we had last night, because we filmed this on Wednesdays. So this is Wednesday afternoon. It's April 2nd when we're taping this. But so last night, we'll just go last night. So about 4 o'clock, as most college kids do, I'm playing MLB The Show in my basement, and I get done with a game, and I'm playing. I look at my Twitter, and I see this news that Jocelyn Schiller, the Summer League Freshman of the Year, has transferred to NDSU. And I think that's false. Mm-hmm. There's no way she would leave UND. She went to Grand Forks Red River High School, which is 75 miles away in Grand Forks. Great player, and yet she's going to leave there to come here?
Yeah, it's like the equivalent of someone from like Fargo North going to NDSU and then transferring to UND. It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Turns out that's accurate. We'll speak more about that in detail, but that was at about 4:30, I want to say, when I looked at it anyway. And then later that night, the Twins get their first win of the season because we're both diehard Twins fans, unfortunately. They got their first win. They're now 1-4. They're playing the White Sox as we speak. They're up 1-0 last time I checked. But they got their first win last night against the White Sox team they should beat every time, but they didn't last night.
Painful team to watch.
And then later that night, I end up staying up till about 12:30 in the morning because the Timberwolves are playing a 0-0 overtime game on national television. And I'm just like, the game made no sense because Jokic scores 61 points and they lose.
Yeah, that's just the NBA in a nutshell right there. Best player will score 50 points and then you'll lose. It's weird
the
things
Wolves
like that.
have had 2 players score 60 points against them this year, De'Aaron Fox and Jokic, and they somehow won both games. It's the Timberwolves. I don't know how to explain that to you, but so they win by a point. It's 140 to 139 was the final in that one. So unreal. And then earlier today, we just found out that Glenn Taylor, the Timberwolves owner, has completed his sale to Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry. So quite a day here, quite a couple days here in Minnesota sports and in NDSU athletics.
Can't ask for more in the month of April, and there's not much going on. We got as much news as we could handle.
And we still got more coming here. So we'll get into Schiller later on. But let's talk about the NFL first. I want to focus a little more on the college. We want to focus on college, of course, but we want to talk about the NFL. It's their league meetings right now in Palm Beach. We want to discuss the rule changes that they have discussed. First one is the tush push, the brotherly shove that the Eagles have dominated the last couple of years. There's been a motion to ban it. Where do you stand on the tush push?
I hate the Eagles, but if you're just don't let them get to 3rd and inches or 4th and inches. Just play better defense or just have a better D line. I guess it's hard to do. Easier said than done, but I don't think they should ban it.
Now, the solution is that guy from Florida is coming out in the draft. He's like 425 pounds. If you get him in the middle of that, you may have a chance to stop that play. But the Eagles are a special case. They have a guy who squats 600 pounds at quarterback. It's going to be pretty hard to stop him to begin with. And with the Eagles' offensive line, it is what it is. So I don't have a problem if they keep it, if they man it. I'm kind of in the middle on it. Yeah. But, again, if they keep it, great. If they get rid of it, I'm fine with that too. I wouldn't say, this already happens in the playoffs, but each team is guaranteed a possession in overtime, 10-minute period. I mean, the Bills have been talking about this for years, but it makes the most sense to me to do it that way.
I just think, if you haven't proved that you can win through overtime or through 60 minutes of football, it's really just a toss-up anyway. So it's just Bills fans whining per usual.
Yeah. I'll skip down to the dynamic kickoff for a second. That's permanent. So the kicker being all by his lonesome when he kicks off, that's permanent. But what they might do is move the ball where you start with the touchback out to the 35-yard line. I don't know about that because if you get 2 first downs, you're in field goal range. So, if you're the Cowboys, you need 15 yards and you're already in field goal range. I don't like that as much.
The kickers have just gotten so good that the NFL just seems like they just can't handle it and they don't know how to change the rules. And I honestly think at some point the kickoffs are just not going to become a thing. You're just going to have the ball from the 25 because it's a touchback every time anyway.
Yeah, at some point, I don't know. I like the overtime the way it is. I don't want it to be the college overtime.
No.
If you're going to do the college overtime, make them start from the 50 and not the 25. Yeah. Make it a little harder. Mm-hmm. But all in all, I get it. I get why it's permanent and all that stuff. The Lions talked about something, and this will be talked about more in May at their second round of league meetings, the reseeding of the postseason. So as of right now, the division leaders, the champions, get the top 4 seeds, and then the top 3 wild cards, they also get into the playoffs. If Minnesota, they had 14 wins, right? Under this format, they would have been, I think, the 2 or the 3 seed.
Yeah, I think the 3 Eagles.
Eagles would, I think they have the same record, right?
Yeah.
So the Vikings would have been the 3 seed and gotten a home game instead of going out to Arizona to play the Rams. So.
Yeah.
I'm not against it, but again, there has to be some kind of reward for winning your division.
Yeah, I agree. The same thing. It could have been reversed. I mean, the Vikings have had years where they've won the division and been 10-6,
right,
and they would have been like a 6 seed.
Like they played Seattle in 2015.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. It's like every schedule's different. Your strength of schedule's different. If you win your division, you win your division. In my mind.
Now some more technological stuff they've talked about. Expanded replay assists for officials. Where was this last year?
Yeah.
Because if you remember, Sam Darnold on Thursday night got his face mask pulled into another county, and they didn't call that. That would have been 15, and that would have had the ball about the 30-yard line. Instead, it's 2 points for the Rams, and they end up losing by 10, right? So that's a good thing. That just has to happen. I get officials are human, but it's annoying to me that they can't review. They can't. I don't want them to review everything, but they shouldn't. But like parts like face masks that are obvious, that has to happen.
It's like they review things that don't need to be reviewed,
yes,
and then the things that are easy fixes. It's like baseball. You watch the Twins opening day, Pablo Lopez box, and then they can't review it. Mm-hmm. It's like the NFL. NFL is just like that with face mask calls. It's an easy call to see. Mm-hmm. Grab a face mask. It's 15 yards.
And the last thing, now the chain gang isn't going away, but they're now the secondary operation to mark first downs because something called the Hawkeye system has now been placed into the National Football League. So that's like chips in the footballs, and there'll be cameras all over the stadium to view. Did you actually get the first down? Kind of like tennis.
Yeah.
So if we're like in or out in tennis, if you're on the chalk or not, that's now going to be in the NFL. That should have happened about 20 years ago. I think is when we probably should have started to do this, but better late than never, I think, for the first downs, not using the chain gang as much.
Yeah, the Bills, another thing the Bills would have appreciated in the AFC Championship game because we all know Josh Allen got the first down.
Yes.
If they win, I don't know if they win or not, but this is something that needed to happen. The NFL, $1 billion industry, and it seems like in some ways they're behind the game.
Yes. And then my favorite is from the Lions. Now, the Lions led the NFL in penalties by the cornerback position. They led the NFL in penalties in the secondary. They propose that we should eliminate an automatic first down for illegal contact or defensive holding. No, that's not how this works. Again, pass interference is an automatic first down. They're not debating that. They're debating the defensive penalties, legal contact, and holding.
The NFL just give in to teams when something bad happens. All right, we got to change the rules now for this team. We got to change it for this team. Just stick to your rules and embrace the struggle. If you,
I don't like that they're even contemplating. I don't think it passed committee anyway. But it's just like you led the league in defensive penalties. Hey, I get better corners if I were you. Then I mean, they signed DJ Reed, who's a pretty good corner, but he's pretty handsy as well. So
what if
we'll
it's
see.
3rd and 30 and JJ McCarthy throws a 20-yard pass and they get a penalty? Well, that would have been a first down. Now it's 3rd and 10 or something like that. It's like, I don't know. I just don't get it. But
again, those are just the little rule changes. Those come up every year, and they're funny to talk about every. It's like when the tuck rule came back into committee. They're like, okay, we got to get rid of that.
Yeah.
But all right, let's move on to the NCAA Final Four. That's now on Saturday. We got Duke versus Houston. That's number 1 offense and number 1 defense. I picked Duke in my brackets, so go Duke. And Florida and Auburn. The real SEC championship game will be the other semifinal. What do we make of that?
Welcome to the new era of college basketball. It's gonna be like this for a while. I mean, not necessarily all 1 seeds, but you're not gonna see Loyola Chicago in the Final Four. You're not gonna see any 12 seed or. Honestly, it's probably going to be top 4 seeds from here on out in the Final Four. It's just how it is. Yeah,
that's probably accurate. How many brackets? Because we all did a bracket challenge, us writers. We all did one. Let me check here. I'm currently leading you by 4 points. Now, again, I made 3 brackets. That's the max amount you're allowed to have. How many brackets is acceptable for you? I think 3 because you're allowed 3.
Yeah, I say when the bracket comes out, you make one right away and you kind of just rush through it. Mm-hmm. And then you make one with your friends or with a group like this, and you really think it out. And then you make a 3rd one, like either a coin flip or which logo looks cooler or something like that. I think 3 is perfect.
I did do that, and it turns out my second one was better. I had Florida winning that one. So that's the interesting topic I thought about. And then, is all chalk a good thing? This is the second time we've had all number 1 seeds make the Final Four in the seeding era since 1979.
Yeah.
Interesting. Both the other one happened in 2008 in San Antonio. This Final Four is also in San Antonio. But is all chalk a good thing? I don't want to say it is, but you get the best basketball out of it.
Yeah. I'm not going to say it's a terrible thing, but I also, as a mid-major fan, I like Cinderella runs, and I'm sure CBS Sports loves that it's going chalk because the ratings are going to be through the roof. Kind of like how the Super Bowl, everyone hated the Eagles.
That's because Duke is there.
Yeah.
That's why it's going to get rated.
Yeah, but it's all about ratings with them. They love it when it's the best teams. But
now again, this is a question I've thought about for a while. What impact does this have on mid-majors? Now we're talking about the Summit League specifically because that's home base for us. I don't think we're going to see 2014 North Dakota State again. That was a 12 seed, but there was a lot of a lot of juniors, a lot of seniors, some fifth-year guys were on that team. And you had Saul Phillips was a veteran coach. He was there. Or 2020 Oral Roberts that had O'Banner and Max Asmus and Paul Mills was their coach for a while. They kept building and building and building to get where they are now. And now, like Frankie Fiddler from Omaha, who could have been on this year's tournament team, he's instead being a backup guard at Michigan State. So what impact is it going to have in your opinion?
I mean, like mid-major teams, I think the ultimate goal is obviously to win your conference, which is still attainable because everyone else is getting gutted. But I think getting to like the Sweet 16, the Elite 8, that's just not going to happen. If you win one tournament game, I think you're lucky because we watched Omaha, who was the best team in the Summit League this year, and they just got pounded by St. John's.
Yeah.
It's just going to be like that from now on.
It was never a game.
No.
Never. And maybe for a little bit, I remember it was 7-0 Omaha.
Yeah.
And then Rick Pitino would call his first time out before the media, and people were on Twitter like, oh my God, Omaha got him. Made Rick Pitino call his first time out before the media. And again, I just wanted to point out, if you are on the first or second team All-Summit League, you are as good as gone as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
Here's the first team All-Summit League. Miles Barnstable of St. Thomas in the transfer portal. Oscar Clough, South Dakota State transfer. He left for Purdue. Purdue doesn't go in the portal much. They went to get Oscar Clough. Chase Forte, South Dakota. He's in the portal as a guard. Jackson Money, he graduated. We'll cut him some slack. He was here for 1 year and graduated, right? Markel Sutton from Omaha, gone. He transferred. J.J. White from Omaha, he transferred. That's just the first team. Here's the second team. Jamar Brown, Kansas City, who's a senior. He's in the transfer portal. Drake Dobbs from St. Thomas, he graduated. Trayson Eaglestaff, we know where he went. He went to South Carolina. Isaac McBride, he graduated from Oral Roberts. And then Jakari White, obviously, he's in the portal as well. That's a kiss of death for the Summit League. If you are on that team, you are as good as gone.
Yeah, it's like we were saying, it's how it's going to be unless something major changes. If you're someone who's getting here $100,000, come play with us for your last year, you're not going to turn that down.
No.
Especially if you come from like a not so rich family. But I mean, this is the farm system now. I mean, they just look at the NDSUs, SDSUs of the world, and it's like, who can we take from them? And they don't want to develop anymore. They just want to get the guys now.
Yeah, it affects women's basketball too. Haley Timmer from South Dakota State was going to be a pretty big player for them next year.
Yeah.
She's in the portal as well. So it's not immune to either or, men's or women's basketball. Speaking of the Bison women, they fell in the grade 8 of the WNIT tournament to Troy. They lost them earlier in the year in Anchorage, Alaska. Troy came back to Fargo. They beat NDSU 97-88. Great performance by the women.
Yeah, it was
great.
It was really fun to watch, and the Shack was packed. It was probably one of the more high-attended games against Troy that they've had in a while for women's. And I don't know if you remember when they used to play where the volleyball team plays for basketball for women's, and it was like, for a couple of years, it was like watching a high school game. And now they've brought this program to, I mean, they could be a Summit League champion next year.
I mean, they played at Shields Arena for a little bit as well. They kind of split time between Benson Bunker and the Shields Arena. When they played there, that was the last time they beat South Dakota State was in that building.
Yeah.
They had Brooke Lamar on that team, who was one of the all-time greatest players in women's basketball history. She was on that team that won. Still haven't beaten the Jacks since that game. But again, if you look at the stats from that game that I noticed, they shot 20% from three-point range.
Yeah, it's obviously something they want to address, and they did.
They did. Avery, we'll get to that in a second. Avery Coonan had 23 points. She announced earlier today that she is coming back for another year. Abby Schulte ends her career with 12 points. Molly Lenz had 11. Abby Draper, she's graduating. She had 10 points. You can't ask. I mean, they ended the season on a whimper when they lost to Kansas City. They struggle with Kansas City for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why. They just do. But again, they were down in that fourth quarter. They rallied to get it to overtime. They were outscored by 9 in the overtime. But again, this is a good stepping stone for the program.
Yeah, I mean, if you look 4 or 5 years back, to get to where they are now, where they're setting themselves up to be contenders with SDSU next year, I think this is a huge stepping stone, and keeping Avery Conan is huge.
But again, when I was writing this script for our show, I wrote down, a couple of notes I wanted to talk about, and the one thing I was going to ask you this: what does a team need to add in the portal? And I put in all caps, scoring guard.
Yes.
Well, do we have news for you? So again, yesterday as we were talking about Jocelyn Schiller, she is transferring from UND to NDSU. You don't see that very often. I remember in football, like Barty Ogbu, he transferred from NDSU to UND. He didn't play, so it really doesn't matter. But this is huge for UND because, remember, all in the span of about a week, a couple months, we'll say, Bubba Schweigert, the UND football coach, he gets reassigned. Brad Berry gets fired from his post as UND hockey coach. Mallory Bernhard steps down as a women's basketball coach. All in the span of what, a month, 2 months?
Yeah.
Again, Schweiger was a while back. But again, what is going on with Bill Chaves and UND?
It's a great month to be a Bison fan. That's all I'll say. Whenever UND is in shambles, we always love it down here in Fargo. But I don't know what's going on. I think football is going to head the right direction a little bit, because to beat NDSU in 23 and then to just fall off a cliff the next year, you can't go for much further down.
I remember when they came, because I was working for WDAY, so I was on the sideline when they came into the building. And I remember they got off the bus and walking down tunnel, and I'm like, that's a really small football team.
Yeah, they just physically were not there with NDSU. I mean, look at their quarterback. I mean, he was, what, 5'11"?
Not Tommy Schuster. He looked like Tommy Schuster, but he didn't play like him. Simon Rumfo came in there and, I wouldn't say stunk up the joint. He threw a touchdown pass late when it didn't matter.
Yeah.
But all in all, I saw that news from Schiller. I was one of the first people on her Twitter to say, hey, welcome to Fargo, all that. Yeah. That's great stuff. And then over the next 45 minutes, I play another game on the show or whatever, and I look back at my phone. Always nasty comments that I'm seeing from people. Those people in Grand Forks, grow up. These athletes have the right to make their own decisions. And last time I checked, the Green and Gold Collective is a little bit more money than what do they call it, the UND Collective, the 701 Collective or whatever it is. That's why people, if you're thinking about donating money to NDSU, put it into that, because that's going to keep these players here.
Yes.
It's what kept Cam here. It kept Bryce Lance here.
Cole
kept
Payton.
Steve Bomana here. It kept Cole Payton here. It kept Avery Coonan here. She's going to be a huge piece for next year's team.
Yeah.
I just wish they had that money last year for Elle Evans.
Yes.
Because if she's still here,
then
with Schiller and Coonan, that's a team that may be able to win a game in the NCAA tournament if they have those three players.
Yeah, NIL is affecting the landscape of college sports in general in so many ways. But if the Bison don't have the Green and Gold Collective, they're not winning a national championship in football this year. There's just no way.
I mean, they got plucked in the portal a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
A lot of guys left. But now that's happening at South Dakota State. They didn't have their jacked up NIL until I think last year is when they just started to get it going, and now they lost Kornowski. They lost all these guys to Washington State. There's your lesson right there. It's just the way college sports is now. If you don't have a collective, good luck holding on to your players.
And the fans like UND, SDSU did a little bit of the commenting on Twitter too. It's like these kids are 18, 19, 20 years old. They're still kids. I mean, and if you're handed a paycheck for $200,000 to play one season of sports, you think you're going to turn that down?
No. Like, what do you think Eagle staff got at South Carolina? Probably more than what Paul Sather could open his wallet for. I doubt it was anywhere near what South Cackalack was going to be giving to Eagle staff.
Blame the NCAA, not the kids.
Yeah. We need guardrails. Okay, well, I hear that all the time. Until you actually have a way to figure that out, it's just going to keep happening. So it's just the landscape that we live in nowadays, and we just got to get used to it. That's all. Can Jory keep this roster together? I think he can. He already has with Coonan, and he only loses 3 seniors. Yeah. So you basically have most of the same team back. Most of the starting lineup comes back. Most of the Abbeys come back. At least one of the Abbeys comes back. Yeah. So I put at the bottom here, what are the expectations? Because I think they can beat South Dakota State. Again, they've won 60-some-odd straight conference games. They're the flagship of the Summit League. I get that. But all they lost in the portal, that's got to mean something at some point. And the Bison are only getting better. And they're the only team I've seen that can remotely challenge South Dakota State.
Yeah, I think like you said earlier, they probably would have challenged them this year if they had Elle Evans. But, next year they're not going to be the favorites just because South Dakota State hasn't lost in 100 years, but they're going to be right behind them at number 2. And if they retain everybody, and if South Dakota State, I mean, they lost a lot of kids, so I think they're going to give them everything they can handle.
I think people forget last year they played in the Summer League Championship game against South Dakota State. That's the first time they'd been to the title game in the Division I era.
Yeah.
And they were right there. Now, again, they didn't shoot the ball great.
No.
Again, Joshua Schiller could help with that. But they didn't shoot the ball great, and South Dakota State didn't either, but they made the plays down the stretch to win. The Bison were ahead in the fourth quarter, just couldn't close the deal. Now that you have Schiller onto this team, I don't see why they couldn't win the Summit League. I really don't. I don't know who else, other than South Dakota State, is going to compete with them right now.
That was their only weakness offensively, was shooting the 3.
Yeah, because they only made 2 of them, I think, against Troy.
The only person I saw that stopped Avery Conan at all was the Washington State post that was like 6'6", and you don't see very many 6'6" girls in women's basketball. So, and not in the Summit League, you're not going to see that. So, I don't see why this team can't win it next year.
So let's just quickly touch on Bison baseball. We'll try to touch on most of the sports here. Bison baseball, they're 8-16 on the year. Now again, doesn't sound great, but they have the toughest strength of schedule in the country this year. That's a stated fact. If you look up on their Twitter, it's there. They're the number 1 strength of schedule team in the country, right? They have lost to Dallas Baptist, who's ranked 21st, Alabama, who is ranked 20th, LSU, who's ranked 2nd. That's where Paul Skeens comes from, boys and girls. Oklahoma State. That's just the major up and up teams they have played.
Yeah.
They also went to Tulane. They've played some teams that are really good, and they almost beat Alabama. They were ahead in the late innings against LSU. They're good. They're a good baseball team. They're just stuck playing a lot of really good teams.
Yeah. Well, and playing these teams is only going to make you better down the stretch when you're playing South Dakota State, Oral Roberts, Omaha, because you're not going to see these Power 4 teams have got numerous guys throwing mid-90s. They've just got future MLB prospects.
Yeah.
Your Summit League, you're not going to see as much of that, and we saw it against South Dakota State.
Also, just touching on conference play for the Bison baseball team, they beat Oral Roberts in Tulsa. Oral Roberts is the flagship of the Summit League when it comes to they made the College World Series a couple of years ago from the Summit League. They won 2 or 3 in Tulsa, and then they beat Northern Colorado again. I get it's Northern Colorado. They're kind of off the map when it comes to college sports. They went to 2 or 3 and won out there because again, when you play baseball in North Dakota, it's sleeting outside right now. Everybody, sleeting. I don't think you're going to play a baseball game this early. It's April 2nd, and they did play a home series this past weekend against South Dakota State and won the doubleheader. Problem is, it was a 3-game series, and they have to now make up that game in Brookings later this month. That sucks.
And by the way, that South Dakota State doubleheader was about 25 degrees. It felt like with the wind chill in it. And Newman Outdoor Field does not look good in the spring. The grass was
neither should it be. Neither should it be this time of year.
No.
South Dakota State's not very good at baseball either. So they only have they have single-digit wins. I can't remember how many wins it is. It's not a lot. It's like 5.
They just didn't look that great. They didn't really pass the eye test in my mind. They had one pitcher their closer, I forgot his name, but he was throwing pretty well, but it didn't matter.
But again, baseball, they've won a couple Summit League championships. They can compete for one. They're playing against the best team in the country, and they're hanging around. I'm not saying they're winning, but they're hanging around. All you got to do in Summit League play, win a series, and all of a sudden they hosted the Summit League championship a couple years ago at the outdoor.
They have pitching depth this year too, which when it comes to tournament time and at any level of baseball, if you have pitching, you have a chance. We see that every year in the major leagues, college baseball, high school baseball. This doesn't matter. Now,
I'll talk about Bison softball a little bit. It's a sport that I cover for the spring season here at the Spectrum because, again, you all cover different sports that you're comfortable with. I called a set of softball games last year on the radio, so I thought, okay, I'll cover the softball team. They're actually pretty good this year, believe it. They're 15-17 this year. Again, nothing to write home about. I get it. But last year, Darren Mueller's team went 17-37. That's not good.
No.
Not good. 17-37. They were swept by South Dakota State, the series that I called on the radio last year. But they opened up conference play. They beat Kansas City in the open up conference play. And they also beat Iowa State this year as well. Big 12 team. That's a good win for them. And they host Omaha this weekend. If the weather improves at home, it's supposed to be at Theraldson Sports Park on campus here. We don't know if that series is going to get played. Now, if it keeps sleeting like this, that's a definite no-no, but it's supposed to be at 55 on Friday, so I don't know our weather. I've lived here for 19 years. I can't predict the weather in this state. It just is the way it is.
Yeah.
So if a bat and a ball is involved, the Bison haven't been terrible this year, and that's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
softball's kind of the one sport at NDSU that I haven't paid close attention to, but from everyone I've talked to this year, they are kind of on the rise compared to what they have been, kind of like the basketball team. But yeah, it's exciting to see the sports really competing for titles.
All right, to close out our show, I want to address our April Fool's articles in the Spectrum this week. We'll get to mine at the end. We'll do mine at the end. We'll do the other four first. You wrote an article. Again, I gave out the article assignments, so I'll take credit, discredit, whatever for whatever we get from these articles, right? First one we did. NDSU men's basketball, they fired Dave Richmond after 11 seasons. They bring in Tim Bergstrasser, the MSUM head coach. I'm not saying Dave should go anywhere. But again, they've kind of been stagnant a little bit the last couple of years. I'm not going to blame him for this year because his team was injured to heck and back. They just were. And they didn't have Money. They didn't have White. If we don't have those two guys, and yet they still almost beat South Dakota.
Yeah. I mean, if you're that injured, you can't really expect much, and they still were within, 4 points at the end?
They were right there.
Yeah. In the Summit League, you win 3 games in a row. That's all you have to do, and I think they had a chance if they were healthy. But yeah, it's kind of fun to pretend sometimes on these articles. And
Tim Bergstrasser to me would be the optimal hire, if I can put it in that kind of way. He took MSUM. I don't remember their past. I'm no MSUM sports fanatic. I don't know. Mike McFeely might from the Forum, but I don't. But he has won almost twice as many games as he's lost. I mean, he's been unbelievable at MSU. He took them to the Elite 8 round of the D2 tournament this year. They almost came to the Shack and beat the Bison earlier this year in an exhibition game. They're good. And they've got some players on that team that could play at NDSU right now. They're good. They're really good. So, again, Richmond, this year I'll give them a pass. Last year was pathetic, just put it kindly. And then the last couple of those 4, 5, 6 years before, they were playing a Summit League championship game every year.
Yeah.
Now, again, I don't know if the recruiting has gone downhill or what, but they only have, 7 active players that are on scholarship right now?
Yeah.
That's every year. I get it.
Even if they wanted to play in the NIT, they wouldn't be able to. They'd have to get somebody from intramural basketball.
They haven't played at a lot of the postseason tournaments because they're just injured or don't have enough players. It's usually one or the other. They haven't played in a postseason tournament that's not the NCAA tournament since 2015, 16, I want to say. It was really in the middle of his tenure.
Which is sad because you saw what the WNIT produced at the Shack. If we could get that for men's, it'd be really cool.
I haven't seen a crowd that big for a women's game, period. It used to be like that at the old BSA, but again, it was kind of a bandbox, so it was pretty small.
Yeah.
But you get to the Shack, a lot of seating, lots of people can get in there. I think for the men's games, they've done at least 5,000 for UND.
Yeah,
But South Dakota State, they've done 5,000. It's happened in the past. It hasn't happened enough, though.
It's almost like the football games now, where it's only UND and SDSU, where we get sellouts for basketball games. But in February, what else do you have to do on a Saturday afternoon?
Yeah.
Go to a basketball game.
Right. I'll do mine at the end. We'll go to Joey Fox's article that he wrote. NDSU to start NCAA hockey programs. Now, again, it's a reoccurring joke around campus. Hey, we should start a hockey program. What makes me laugh personally is when they do the Fargo Regional at the NCAA hockey tournament. It's at Shields Arena. It's in Fargo. And then I look on the ice, and I see Fighting Hawk logos. I get it, because according to NCAA bylaws for now, host teams cannot host at their arena. So UND can't host a regional at the Ralph. They should be allowed to, but they can't.
Yeah.
So they have to go to the closest arena, that can do a regional like this. Well, that happens to be Shields Arena. And what always makes you laugh even more is that inside Shields Arena, there's 2 banners in there that are dedicated to the Bison. They're the men's basketball banners in there because they only lost 1 game, I want to say, at Shields Arena in 2 seasons. So it's really the Fargo Regional hosted by the University of North Dakota at North Dakota State.
Yeah.
So I don't get it, but I think, will they add hockey? Probably not in either of our times on campus, but could it happen 30, 40 years down the line? Sure.
Yeah, why not?
I don't know. But what I asked Joey while he was writing the article, that Bradbury got fired at UND. The only logical decision would be he comes down here and leads our hockey program, right? So that's what we had him do in our made-up universe, is that Bradbury comes back, and he is now the head man on the bench for the NDSU hockey team. He went about the women's hockey program as well. I didn't ask him to do that. He did that on his own. I think that was really cool that he did do that. But realistically, would you support a hockey program on campus?
100%. This is hockey. We're basically in Minnesota, and that's hockey country. I personally didn't play hockey growing up. I played basketball.
I wasn't allowed to, so you consider yourself lucky.
Yeah, I love watching hockey. I don't know a ton about it, but I mean, if the Bison had hockey, I'd go to a ton of games.
It took me about 5 years to realize what offside was. So
Yeah.
I'm being honest, I don't know much about hockey. That's why I'm here, not at UND.
Yeah.
But again, I think hockey would be cool, but in our theoretical little world, we can make it happen. Sam Hughesby, he wrote an article about how baseball, they upset number 1 Tennessee 5-4. Now again, they almost beat LSU, and they were ranked second at the time, so that may have, this is probably the one that actually felt the most real.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that will ever happen or it'll ever beat SEC school. And you never say never. But I mean, the Bison baseball team, we've talked about it, they're good. They just played some really good teams on their schedule. This is a team that could win, and in our own universe, I think what Sam is going for is that they hosted Tennessee as well. Because he says they hit a walk-off. I don't think Tennessee's coming from Knoxville to Fargo in April, Sam. I love you, but I doubt that they're coming up here. But
Yeah, I mean, you never know if you have one really good pitcher and he has a really good day, and then all of a sudden Tennessee, I mean, you play 40, 50 games in a baseball season, you might take one a little light. You just never know.
Yeah. Our buddy in the back who's running graphics, Cash Roman, he wrote about how the NDSU track and field programs went out to Oregon. Not much of an April Fool's article, but more just they don't go to Oregon often, and Oregon's they're a top track program in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, their main logo is basically the track stadium outline in their logo. They care about track probably more than any school in the country, probably outside Florida, who really cares about it. But NDSU is one of the top track programs in the country. They could go to Oregon and break records. I think they could.
Yeah, from what I've heard, we have a good track program. We
sent Peter Audadal to the Paris Olympics, so we're doing pretty good things with the track program.
It seems like sports like that, like obviously wrestling wasn't that great, but the sports that are kind of fly under the radar are the ones that sometimes do well and don't get recognized. It's a football school.
Before I have Cash show you about mine, let me just talk about it a little bit first. So the article I wrote was that Carson Wentz retired from the National Football League, and he was named the quarterback coach at NDSU. That's obviously not true. Joe Bishorner has become the quarterback coach at NDSU, and Carson Wentz is a free agent, and he's in rumored to sign with a couple of teams. The Vikings are in that mix because they don't have a backup quarterback right now. So I wrote that over the weekend, and I didn't think it was that. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was a great article by any means. I didn't think it was great. But Cash, show them what I wrote. So that's my Twitter account. We'll just leave it there for a second. Just leave it there. I'll just read the tweet for you. This is from Reddit FCS. The second most English language business paper after the Wall Street Journal. They fell for an article that I wrote in this week's Spectrum, right? So that, Ethan's laugh tells you all about it. It doesn't make any sense. Go to the article that they posted, Cash. Can we get that? Yeah, we'll show that one too. Yeah, show that quick as well. I replied to the tweet and I said, if only they would read the fine print. I highlighted for you all the date I posted it on and the tagline that I put on top of it. It's fake and it's a part of our annual April Fool's Edition special. I don't know what else to tell anybody. I have another tab in there, Cash, if we could pull that up. That's the article that they posted about it. Yeah, there's another one. Patrick McCall here. I don't know KSJBAM or whatever. I don't remember specifically what that is, but they also talked about it as well. So I don't know how people misconstrue that information and it's somehow factual. I don't understand why people don't get that. Yeah. You can't be that gullible.
Yeah, me at 19 years of age, if I see anything sports related on April 1st, I don't believe any of it.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about one of those articles is that there's direct quotes saying,
yeah, scroll through my article, Cash, while you're at it. It's just, I didn't feel good when I wrote this. I'm being honest. I didn't like it. I didn't. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great by any means, but yeah. So again, you can find that at ndscspectrum.com if you want to read more about that article that I wrote. The Twitter handle, by the way, is ghubbard_pxp. If you want to give me a follow, I'd appreciate it. But okay, we're Bison football fanatics. Would Carson Wentz ever coach? Possibly.
He's really competitive, so you never know.
But he would start probably at Bismarck Century, or he'd go back home first and do that before he even thought about coaching here.
Yeah.
Now again, he mentored Easton Stick when he got hurt with the broken wrist. I get that. That's all fantastic. That's all fine and dandy. But would he actually stop playing and coach? I don't know. I really don't.
I still think he's got a good 3 or 4 years left in the NFL just because I think if he continued being a starter, he would have played as long as he could. But now that he's a backup, he's probably got 3 or 4 years. And I think if he ever gets into coaching, it'll be down the road when he's in his 40s probably.
Yeah.
And could he come back to NDSU? I could 100% see that just because he's such a competitive guy, and competitive players tend to be coaches eventually. So, but now when he's 31, no, I don't know how people felt for it.
I just don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, okay. I guess I'm just kind of built to write April Fool's articles because I wrote one last year about the Bison moving up to the Mountain West Conference, which was being speculated at that time. It got 20,000 views or whatever. It was a great article. I didn't think this one would even light a candle to that, but I guess it did. So that's all great. But yeah, it's interesting. It's just interesting that people are that gullible and are willing to click on it, even though it's not real at all. Like, I just no. Now, the hardest part when writing those kinds of articles is trying to sound like the person you are trying to make fun of.
Yeah.
Like trying to sound like Carson Wentz is hard because you have to talk about Christ and you have to talk about his playing career and sound like him. It's harder to sound like Polasek because you really have to kind of go off the wall to sound like Polasek. So I talked about how when Carson ran that QB power in against Illinois State because he talked about that on the coach's show a while back, but he can just remember plays like that, and so I kind of talked about that a little bit. But, I don't know what else to say about other than that. Like, really? Are you that gullible that I got you 2 years in a row?
It's power of social media, if you ask me. People the age, honestly, anybody at any age, they click on something on social media and they believe it. But it's April 1st. Let's bring it together here.
So next week we will talk about how NDSU, they're going to the White House next week, the football program is. So we'll talk about that a little bit. The championship game for the Final Four, we'll talk about that next week. See if Duke or Florida, Houston, Auburn, see if one of them can bring home another national title on the basketball side. Whenever Bison news, if it's as newsy as it was this week, we gotta go longer next week. We'll see what happens. But for Ethan Eibach, one of my top sports writers, thanks for being here.
Yep.
I'm Grant Hubbard. So long. This has been Bison Overtime. Thank you for watching. Go Bison.